Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we gonna be looking at the United States of America who declared he didn't need Canada anymore. But before we start off, don't forget to like this video for more content like this. Let's jump right into it. America has always been called the melting pot of cultures due to how many immigrants come to the country every single year. This has made the country what it is today. Without all of these cultures coming together, the United States would probably be a very different place. But the US didn't always have open borders. Before 1965, immigration policy was heavily skewed against Asians. It was next to impossible for someone from Asia to get into the United States. The quota for each country was so low that only a handful of people were able to get in every single year. As you can see, before 1965, almost no Chinese immigrants were allowed into the US. In fact, there was an outright ban on Japanese immigrants. This led to some crazy situations where people had to hide their heritage just to be allowed into the US. One of these people was a man named Philip Jason. Philip was born in Seoul, Korea, but immigrated to the US at a young age. When he applied to become a citizen, he was denied due to his Asian heritage. So he did something crazy. He bleached his skin, cut his eyes and basically tried to make himself look white. As you can imagine, this didn't go very well and he was denied citizenship again. He took this to court and the Supreme Court actually ruled that Asian people could not be denied citizenship based on their race. This opened the door for a lot more Asian immigrants to come into the country. But even after this, immigration was very difficult. It wasn't until 1965 when everything changed. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, which got rid of the national origin quotas altogether. This led to an increase in immigration from Asia. It's estimated that over 2 million Asian immigrants entered the US between 1965 and 1975. Since then, Asian immigration has slowed down quite a bit. But there are still a large number of Asian Americans living in the US today. After all this talk about Asian immigration, you might be wondering, why? Why did they want to come to the US? Well, the answer is pretty simple. They wanted a better life. Most of these immigrants came from very poor countries and the US seemed like the land of opportunity. They were also escaping war, famine and other disasters. One example of this was the refugees who fled Vietnam after the fall of Saigon. Between 1975 and 1980, over 100,000 Vietnamese refugees were admitted to the US. While most Asian immigrants were able to assimilate into American culture, some groups faced a lot of discrimination. For example, Chinese immigrants were often seen as a threat to American jobs. This led to the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which banned Chinese immigration to the US. Japanese immigrants faced even more discrimination. After Pearl Harbor, they were seen as enemy aliens. This led to the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. Despite all of this discrimination, Asian Americans have become an integral part of American society. They have made contributions to science, technology, business, and the arts. Some famous Asian Americans include actress Lucy Liu, theoretical physicist Chien Shirung Wu, and astronaut Ellen Chong-o. But enough about the past. What about now? Are Asian immigrants still coming to the US? Well, yes, but not as much as before. In recent years, immigration from Asia has slowed down quite a bit. This is due to a number of factors, including stricter immigration policies and the fact that many Asian countries have become more developed. However, there are still a good number of Asian immigrants coming into the US each year. In 2019, for example, over 300,000 Asian immigrants came to the US. So now you know about the history of Asian immigration to the US. But what about Canada? Is Canada racist towards Asian people? Well, the answer is probably not what you think. Canada has a long history of welcoming immigrants from all over the world. In fact, one of the country's official languages is Punjabi, and it's home to the largest Sikh population outside of India. So clearly Canada is not racist towards Asian people. But some people argue that Canada's immigration system is biased towards certain Asian countries. For example, the majority of Asian immigrants to Canada come from India, China, and the Philippines. These countries are some of the most populous in the world, so it makes sense that a lot of immigrants would come from there. However, this leads to a lack of diversity within Canada's Asian community. Many Asian Canadians feel that they have to assimilate in order to succeed. This means that they have to abandon their culture and way of life in order to fit in. Some also argue that Canada's immigration system is unfair because it gives preference to highly skilled workers. This means that poorer Asian countries are not represented in Canada because their citizens do not have the means to become highly skilled workers. Canada is trying to address this issue by increasing the number of refugees it takes in. Refugees are people who have to flee their country because of war, natural disaster, or persecution. Canada has committed to resettling 25,000 refugees by 2024. 2022, this includes 15,000 refugees from Afghanistan, 5,000 from elsewhere in the Middle East and 5,000 from Africa. While this is not yet enough to make up for the lack of diversity in Canada's Asian community, it is a step in the right direction. Many Asian Canadians feel that they are treated differently because of their race or religion. For example, there have been cases of Asian students being bullied at school because of their race or religion. There have also been instances of Asian Canadians being denied jobs or housing because of their race or religion. While Canada is not perfect, it is important to remember that racism and discrimination can happen anywhere. It is not exclusive to any one country. The United States and Canada are both countries that pride themselves on being welcoming to immigrants. Both countries have benefited greatly from immigration, and both countries have a long history of welcoming immigrants from all over the world. Despite this, both countries have also been guilty of racism and discrimination against Asian people. The United States has a long history of discriminating against Asian people. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 is a prime example of this. The United States also has a history of denying Asian people citizenship. This culminated with the Supreme Court case involving Philip Gyson. Canada, on the other hand, is not as bad as the United States, but it is still guilty of some racism and discrimination against Asian people. When looking at the two countries, though, it seems that the United States is far worse than Canada. If you're an Asian person looking to move to either country, I would recommend Canada over the United States. Canada is a more welcoming country and there is less racism and discrimination. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.